So let me introduce the very first speaker for the day. The topic is going to be mastering global tax compliance amid changing landscapes. And now it's time to introduce our speaker, Mr. Ankur Tandon, CFO, Navitasys India Private Limited. Let me give a small brief about sir. Mr. Ankur is an accomplished professional delivering 18 years of career success in leading finance, commercial and supply chain operations for various sectors, mainly FMCG, FMCD, retail, manufacturing, consulting and telecom. His dexterity lies in directing financial analysis, internal and regulatory reporting, accounting operations, budgeting, forecasting, and that has led to long-term improvements in cost savings, profitability, and productivity. He has demonstrated excellence in reviewing and enhancing all financial procedures and internal controls, automating financial information systems, and preparing financial forecasts with coordinated budget projections. With this, everyone, let's welcome the very first speaker for the day, Mr. Ankur Tandon, with a huge round of applause, everyone. Let's applaud for every speaker who steps up on the dais.
Good morning, everybody. So, first of all, thank you for coming so early, and let's start this event on time. And today topic, as you say, is already touching our hearts in terms of the global mismatches which are going across. As we can see that actually tax compliances are getting affected by what is going around the global uncertainties. So to introduce the topic, I would first start with a quote that by small step we will reach to longer goals. Moving on in terms of how this VUCA world is happening. So in terms of, when I use a term VUCA world, it is today synonym to volatility, uncertainty, complexity and ambiguity. So from that perspective, as you can see that today tariff wars are there. There are some cold wars. Recently also we have seen between India, Pakistan and other geographical countries also fighting together. There are sanctions which are happening. There are huge interest rates which are fluctuating in the markets. There are a lot of guidelines or restrictions happening in terms of how oil prices are fluctuating across the global. So in this changing whole environment, as you can see that somewhere each company is getting affected in some way or the other. We as tax professionals actually have to look through how we can mitigate these risks together and have such a compliance framework where authorities and the governance plays a vital role in actually implementing these things. If you see that today modern landscape is full of complexities, there are a lot of jurisdiction restrictions which are happening between the transaction. Each transactions are getting scrutinized in terms of any movement from one country to another. It may be in form of services, it may be in form of goods also. We are into manufacturing of lithium-ion batteries. So we import lot of materials and services from across the world to actually establish our product in India and make in India products. But we face lot of uncertainties in these challenges. So I would share some examples with you. Suppose if I import any particular material like lithium or cobalt from any of the countries, there are a lot of custom issues. There are a lot of tax issues in terms of transfer pricing if I am importing it from my related party transaction, whether it at arm length price or not. So somewhere these complexities are creating a lot of troubles. So our framework of evaluation of each transaction, when we go for any transaction which is new or which is innovative in nature, we have to evaluate it from all perspective, from all 360-degree perspective. So we have to have a regulatory landscape framework of preliminary analysis of a transaction till we reach to a consensus that what is the risk which is involved. It may be a low, medium, high risk, and how we are going to mitigate these kind of risks from the perspective of overall compliances. Even if I see, as I earlier mentioned, we have to have a proactive approach. When we say a proactive approach, we have to have a knowledge in terms of studies of what are the OECD guidelines in terms of transfer pricing or cross-border transactions which are happening. In today's India, we still have safe harbor rules, we have regulatory practices, we have pricing mechanism, we have benchmarking study, we have lot of data, but the evaluation of these regulatory landscape of movement of money, even in FEMA from one country to another, payment to foreign directors or individuals or to foreign entity need evaluation, because regulator is today looking at many things. Maybe you may be not wrong, but maybe falsely or unknowingly you come to a territory which is not up to mark. So then we will get caught up, and we as professionals have to ensure that we take adequate advice, read or update ourselves in terms of these taxation and regulatory obligation which need to be done. We need to study even the case studies which has been in the past. There are a lot of pending cases which are in appeals, or there are high courts or Supreme Court rulings also for many compliances which are already declared. So we have to look through the transaction, and we have to do the bifurcation of each transaction or on its implementation, so that we can achieve the best possible compliant way to actually evaluate, and we ensure that in the long term there is no risk to the management or to the company. We should regularly conduct the regulatory risk audits which will help us even to evaluate our past stand. Many times it happens when we start, we take a stand, but at that point it may look compliant or not aggressive, but in the long term we see that yes, it is crossing the line by regulators doing the audits, and then we realize that we have got the show cause notice, and when we represent our case we are being countered by many implications. So there, that is evaluation of a regular at an yearly basis or a 6 months basis. We should always do a regular check of our compliances, whether they are in place or not. We may take external help or internal help, that whether we are doing what is required to be done here or not. Even moving forward, if you see, adoption of the risk based approach is very important. If you see here, the involvement of the likelihood of the resources which can evaluate that what risk our transaction are working. We don't want any to be flawed, but still many times it happens that unnecessary by taking some aggressive stand or not having knowledge of the transaction or having evaluation without audits, without proper dashboards or regulatory management, these things do get skips. So corporate governance of taxation is also very important. In our organization, if I give you an example, we have built up the risk compliances documentation which have an SOP that how we will evaluate a transaction. So these evaluation of a transaction help us to look through the nitty-gritties of the transaction. Maybe a freight person or a logistic person can help you give a perspective in terms of customs. Maybe there would be a transaction which is happening at a supply chain level which a finance person will not be evaluated. So we have formed a CFT team or a cross-functional team which can brainstorm each transaction, do the crux analysis of that of a cross-border transaction and evaluate that whether it is compliant or not, whether the pricing is right or not, whether the documentation as per the regulations are right or wrong, whether we are not violating any terms. We have to look into the foreign trade agreements, we have to look into the double taxation agreements when we deal with a certain country. We need to understand what are the framework under which these countries are working and how it is affecting us. I will also present some data. If you see from the global perspective, EY have also in their studies have said that 80% of the companies are not keeping up to the regulatory changes due to which they fall into this trap of penalties, non-compliances. Even digital solutions can help us to actually automate. Today AI is coming and interactive softwares are coming. So these softwares can help us as a friend to actually control our regulatory framework. So maybe AI is not just taking jobs away, but also helping us to improve our risk mitigation plan. This we should use in our industries or in our companies to further leverage this knowledge base. Even from the Deloitte compliances survey study, you can see that maybe some tax advisors in a crucial matter can help us to have a expertise on a regional basis. We all cannot have knowledge of each geography in which we are dealing, so it can help us. As proactive planning or tax planning can help us to reduce and help us to mitigate any risk in future. From compliance, conducting regular audits can help us to reduce our penalties and also look through that what best we can do in terms of compliances. To overall conclude my session, I would say that here as professionals, we need to have a proactive approach. We have to see that what is changing in the world, what new guidelines, what new transactions are coming in terms of cross borders, what are the disputes which are very well aware. We should subscribe to some newsletter. We should dedicate our time to reading in terms of what factual updates are coming across as professionals, so that we can leverage that knowledge to help us to reduce these tax disputes. In terms of international tax compliances, as we can see, benchmarking study can help us to see that what kind of benchmarking study we are doing. We can present our case to TP officers and to regulatory bodies that whether our transactions are at arm length price, whether we are working within the ambit of taxation, we are following what is the law of the land, we are not doing something or fluctuating our cost or our margins to very high level. If there is a reason behind it why we are leveraging these margins, we should have a proper study that how our margins are getting affected, because somewhere these mismatches of data, we first in the flow to get business or to get a project or get an order or to support business, many times cross lines. But we have to tell our directors, our audit committees, our CXOs that yes, compliance is equally important as while doing the business. As you have seen many business being shut down due to these penalties and getting into the tax soups. So let's avoid them. In terms of automation also, as I said earlier, that these automations can help us to leverage our strength and get updates and also evaluate our transaction. A maker checker, a check sheet for each these transaction can help us to evaluate and mitigate these risks. Routine internal audits, which is our job to do as finance function, as taxation function, to include that whether the taxation transaction is right or not. Looking into your benchmark studies is very important in terms of evaluating whether the risk is there or not. So I would in the end would like to conclude and open this session for FAQs in terms of let's focus on evaluating the transaction and focusing that whether what we are doing is in ambit of law or not. Thank you so much.
So with this, thank you so much, sir, for joining in, and we have a small token of appreciation as sir is here with us and given us their time. May I invite Mr. Dinesh Mittal, Senior Vice President, Taxation, Varun Beverages Limited. Sir, please join in and present a small token of appreciation to Mr. Ankur Tandon for their spectacular presentation here today.